All right, we're live. What's going on, gang? Hey, Lewis is rolling down 95.
70 west, actually.
Paint dripping, wood grain dripping. We got the handlebars. They just continue to grow out. Look at that. Look at the extension along the jawline. You can't teach that.
It comes with experience.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's
true.
That's impressive.
Tony's on his. He just texted me, said he's almost home. He had to pick his son up from baseball. He's good dad, good shipper, good dad. Top 5 in both. And we got Samantha Jones with us. Samantha Jones, Rocket Shipping. Company's got a lot of momentum. At the beginning it was funny. When I put out the first post, I was like, we don't just interview CEOs or things like that or whatever. I was like. Or boring. I made sure I worded it so that I could leave one open for yours and a couple other ones that are actually pretty cool.
The brokers are cool. We'll take that.
Hey, Lewis.
Yo.
I have no problem talking to drivers. Will you go ahead and throw yourself on mute for a minute?
You got it.
God bless you. So totally going. So Samantha, vice president of revenue, which is just, a lot of us don't obviously want to put sales in our title. I know I don't ever want to do that.
It's funny you are already asking that too, because intentionally vague, because I wear a lot of hats. So I don't only oversee sales. I am a little bit of truly all things revenue, which includes, understanding the markets we operate in, macroeconomics, freight market cycles, collaborating with pricing, and then, any revenue generating activity, I kind of get involved on the front end, strategic partnerships. So that might be with shippers, might also be with, some of our partners and providers that we have for our services, maybe tools for our sales team, anything like that. And then also, once a seller, always a seller. I'll never be able to get out of sales, So I do get involved as well in our strategic partnerships with our more of our mid to enterprise size guys when we're in the early stages of talking to them.
Yeah, and those relationships are established, and you know what you're doing, and you see. It's funny. The more you're in sales, and Jeff could attest to this, you just start seeing opportunities that other people don't see, and you can't not take advantage of them. I've always, that's why my title always had like sales and operations in it, and now it's like business development, kind of the same type of thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
you just enjoy it too much, right? Like it's too fun to be able to be like, oh, look at the opportunity here to make something really cool in a partnership, and that's kind of even if one day I don't have the title I have now, I'll probably always have to be like, hey, can I jump in on a sale here, or can I talk to a shipper, because it's just too fun. Yeah,
and that's companies that are going to grow and that are successful have that. I know when when I was at Circle, we first started, there wasn't very many of us. We were just kind of getting off, but it was a sale. We were all in sales mindset. But we had, I was dispatching drivers. I was, I'll help them with trailers, and then I'm out the broker, but I had to keep my pipeline full because it was always preach, and it's just something that gets in and instilled in you, and you learn to keep your head on a swivel. And I think it makes you more efficient as you get farther down the road. The cool part is I'm helping Mr. Lewis Claudio right now land his first customer.
Nice.
Right? Got him hooked up with somebody. Yeah. Gave him some insight on how to go in and get it to get in the door. I told him, so listen, so he was going to call or did call or whatever it was. And the guy wasn't very, I said, hey, you're going to lump yourself in with everybody else. You show up right at, because he's the guy that the decision maker's at the dock, right? He's at the shipper. I said, pull up in your truck. Get out of your truck, park right in front of that door, and walk in and shake his hand and tell him, hey, I'm local. He's gonna see your truck. That's a whole different ballgame. You know what I mean? Those are, and then we're working on a strategy on pricing lanes on having a partnership with him that is more. And I told him too. A lot of my people, when we do RFPs and stuff, nobody has conversations. They fill it out, they send it in, they wonder why they don't get awarded. And it's like, have those conversations, like this lane, volume wise, let's grow together. How can I get to where I've got 2, 3, 4 guys driving for me with more trucks? I'm local. You take the guy out to dinner. There's all these different strategies that he has an advantage on. And I told him, I was like, dude, you're a likable dude. Like, you go in and he's already got it down. I didn't have to tell him much, but
hey,
not first direct, because he already got direct customers, but big one.
Hey, TJ, I have to hand it to you. You know what? Not too many brokers that I know over the years do what you did by actually helping the driver to get his first account. I mean, who does that? Seriously. I mean, you don't
Well,
see
yeah.
so I mean, hats off to you, my friend. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but remember Lewis, he was one of my drivers in my fleet when I was running the asset side. And I helped him get his own MC number. And I'm supposed to have driver retention, and I'm helping this guy get out of it. But I'm telling you right now, when you get to a certain point in your career, there's more than enough freight to go around.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, if I wanted that account, I would have had it. I mean, because I'm local too. I mean, we live in the same area, so I know what it is. I know about it. I know it would fit him better than what it would fit me. I know the ins and outs of how they load and what they load and what they do and whatever. And like brokering that, because I can't put assets on it, is tough. But when you're local and you're there and you can drive a trailer that night and go home, eat dinner with your family, and come back and get it, I mean, like there's things you can do that are different.
We offer, so part of our model, we offer consulting services to our carriers. We don't work with as many owner ups. Our usual size is not a mega carrier, not a super small, but we're averaging between like 50 and 250 trucks is our core carrier partner base. But a lot of these guys, even with 30, 50, 100 trucks, sometimes that growth happens pretty quickly and you don't quite understand how to optimize your network around it. When you go from 75 to 100 trailers or 100 to 200 trailers. And so we're very blessed because our VP of network design came from 10 plus years of consulting for asset fleets. And so that's what we do now is, we onboard them if they meet our metrics for our core base. Well, then we run freight with them. But part of that is constantly, talking to them and saying like, hey, what are you guys looking for? What are you trying to do? And they're like, man, here's the markets we're getting into, but we can't quite put all the pieces together. And then we come in and we help them build routing guides around their network. And then we go find the freight for it. So then it's like, it serves us, right? Because we get the freight, but we also are trying to help them. I mean, when we talk to these carriers, the things that we have to understand before we work with them in our core base is like, what is your break-even point? Do you know what you're running? Like, do you know what you need on these lanes? And then what are your preferred routes? Like if you have routes, you have local guys and you want to run point A, point B back to point A. And like, you want to be home every 2 days, every day. Like, what is that? So we're trying to help our carriers understand, what's your ideal scenario? We can help you find the ideal scenario because we have the know-how, the relationships on the sales side with the shippers, with those markets to do that. But like, we want to challenge our fleets to think that through that for themselves and then come to us and be willing to say, will you help us? Literally, we will do that for free for them. We will help them understand their networks, route their networks, and then we play a part in obviously filling the freight.
That's
thing is too, if I may, just real quick, TJ, that's a great model. And the way that I look at it is one hand is washing the other. So, you say that it's not about money, but you're making them money and they in turn will go back to you and make you money because you're helping each other out. So you're building that network around where your key customers are based upon, you want to be home at night. Do you like long haul? Do you like the short haul? So forth and so on. So, I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because it was on Hold My Beer, actually. We had a big, and we talked about, I always kind of said, like, because there for a while, it's like rates are tough and prospecting customers are tough. Then it's like, rates are great, but finding capacity is tough. Now, how do we find capacity, right? And so I was talking about how, like, hey, everybody's fishing from the same pond, right? And, the good fishermen, know when to fish, where to fish, how deep to fish, right? What lures to use, all these things like that. They get creative. The other guys just go out and bitch because they're not catching anything, right? So, but then we're on there and Jason, who was one of the other directors from the Over Circle, goes, to what TJ said, I agree with that. He's like, but I'm not, my goal is not to be fishing. My goal is to create. My goal is to create capacity. It's to take a 5-10 truck carrier, turn them into a 30-40, feed them business and grow them out over time. And what you do is you get salesmen on the floor. You get boots on the ground. You know what I mean? Because now they're saying, hey, some of them will get stuff direct with, some of them they go through you. But what you're doing is you got them going into a receiver that they want. Those drivers want that receiver, right? And because they think they got freight coming back, right? They always are looking for new stuff, and they've got a contact. They know who to talk to. They know, hey, get with TJ over here, get with whatever, and you've got people on the ground talking to try to get that going. because it may not be something like maybe their operation can't handle it, their sales team may not be able to handle it, whatever it is. But they're looking for what can you do for me now? And if you're doing something for them, again, like what Jeff said, you're washing. What do you say? Washing the other hand with one hand, and there's two hands involved.
Something like that.
Whatever it is, just don't drop the soap. But but that's the benefit of that, and that's what I look at. Again, I've always talked about the relationship with Tony. Knew him for a year, never ever once asked him for freight. Lewis, helped them find a But the thing is though, is that like you benefit from that like more than what you think because I'm looking at it as a career. It's long term. It's not short term. And I think it takes getting confident. I think in yourself enough to know that you don't have to, snatch every single opportunity that comes by. Like if I don't have this one, and I got to find a way to get it, whether it's shady or not, because I need it. And you realize that it's just not the way to do it, and it'll get you out of the industry real quick.
I don't know about you, but it sounds like the zombie apocalypse.
Well, Lewis is on. Yeah, go on mute. God bless him. All right, but we need Lewis involved here. Lewis. Well, Tony's here.
Yay.
Darnell. There was a chassis shortage, and I hit a guy up.
The only chassis we're talking about are the ones we build.
But he's got nobody like dedicated to help him, so like we need help from him. Anyways, we'll find it. There's gonna be. I put a thing out on the local news here tonight to help find him some drayage help. So we're gonna get that done for him.
Yeah. Did you watch my podcast the other day with Ian?
Yeah. Did you see I posted in there?
Yeah, I did. I remember.
So this
blowing up his own inbox. That's on you, buddy. Karma comes back around, doesn't it?
Yeah. Now they're emailing me, and I told him today. I go, it's just it just makes you understand how many bad salesmen there are out there that have no idea, don't do any research, don't actually pay attention.
Don't get me in this. Don't.
To the fact that they're not that we're actually he doesn't need drayage because he continually says he doesn't need it.
No, hey Tony, I got to ask you seriously, and I'm being serious when I ask you this. All this kidding around and everything, have you been hammered with phone calls? Honestly, have anybody reached out to you, or did they take it as a joke?
No, absolutely. I get probably 10 a day.
Oh, that's
solicitations for drayage.
Unbelievable.
They're not all calls.
Probably nothing to do with that.
No, I have zero. We make a product out of raw materials that come from Ohio, and we build it in Indiana, and we ship it to New York and Pennsylvania and Midwest.
They're not all calls, though, are they?
No, I get tons of emails. I mean, emails, calls, everything.
Filter them.
Unbelievable.
But hey, go put a filter in your inbox, and with like a keyword drayage, and have it put to a folder or whatever.
That's what I did, dude.
He's all right.
Sometimes before I go to bed, just for fun, I read the folder full of bad drayage solicitations.
I can forward you about 600 and something.
So we got Tony here. We're gonna get this rolling. All right. I want to talk about, I was thinking about it. I've had people inbox me, or people here like struggling, to uncover opportunities. Some people are, I always say, sales, there's highs, lows, whatever, but it's not necessarily sales as it is just, uncovering opportunities, right? So, sometimes when, the prospecting's tough, that's when you, like what Samantha just mentioned, you start to kind of look at other ways to grow revenue, right? Grow business and find that. So I wanted to touch on everything from the shipper, driver, all that stuff standpoint. So, is Lewis frozen?
Oh yeah.
I think he's struggling. He may be going through. He was out last night. I was talking to him. He's in Hagerstown, Maryland. He's probably coming through West Virginia. Okay. But anyways, so let's go. Is Tony frozen? Oh no, Tony's good.
Just sitting really still.
So we're gonna start with Samantha. All right. I want to start with Samantha. Talk about your ways of just kind of going to your ways of pivoting, finding things, what your mindset is, how you talk to your team about it, and what's worked for you, what hasn't. Then we'll go to Tony, and I want to hear what he has to say from the shipper side of things, because there's opportunities too that he has to find, right? Processes, efficiencies, things like that when things are going this way. And then the great part is, and we got the glue, I call him the glue, Jeff, who can glue both the shipper and broker side together. And I'll stop talking. So Samantha, go ahead. I'm gonna see what you got going.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said an interesting word there that kind of made me think when you said, like, do people need to pivot, or is there a pivot right now? So I would say, like, for us with our model, like, we know that our model is successful in any market because of the way Now it might be in more demand in different markets, right, than it is right now. But if the model is working, if what you are doing is adding value and you know what that value is and it is working in the market, the one thing I would say right now is like, don't pivot. Don't pivot because the market got a little bit more constricted, right? Because there's a little less freight. Don't abandon a good, profitable working model to go out there and try to all of a sudden revenue chase or leave what creates that value to try to step outside of it. If it's an area that's really not, that's not your thing. That's not what you do. It's not what you're good at.
So, and that's one thing. So what I want you to do though, is because you guys have figured that out, right? And you found what is for you.
Right.
In that process, you know, to get to that point to where you have that, you know, a lot of people are listening that are in that process of finding that. What was it? And I'm sure there was probably some pivoting involved in there, but what was it that got you to the point where now, and again, like I said before, you know, it takes a certain, you know, strategy or whatever it is to get to that point where no matter the market, you're fine. You know, what was it you guys did that did that?
So, I mean, we're going to be a little bit of an outlier because we are a younger company and we, you know, day one authority went live and we said, this is how we're going to grow because this is what works and this is what shippers want and this is what carriers want. Now, we had the luxury of having years of experience from our senior leadership, knowing like from other stops in our past careers, what worked and what didn't work, right? So we got to build it from day one, the way we knew we wanted it to be built, very intentionally. And so we haven't had to, you know, do all the trial and error, what works, what doesn't.
Right.
What I would say, and I'm speaking specifically about brokerage right now, obviously, because that's what we're doing in the full truckload space. We run strictly a capacity in hand brokerage model. 90+% of our freight runs on committed carriers with contractual freight awards from shippers. We run drop trailer pools for a majority of our freight. That is just how we operate. So we've also found our niches. Like we know who looks for that type of service. We're big in CPG, retail, food and bev, and high value freight. Like we know what we're doing, and that is where we try to stay. And we just focus on solid execution. And sure, like is it hard right now as a broker let me tell you guys, I've been told, you know, our sales team has been told 50 times probably this week, we're not onboarding brokers. Right now, we are actively reducing our broker base. And that's true. And it should be true. So here's the other thing. Like, I would encourage anyone right now who's trying to grow in a slightly more, it's a down market, right? For the brokerage space, for trucking space right now, compared to the last couple of years, especially. And this is always a slow season anyway. So this is that time of year where everybody's trying to go out there and figure out how to get revenue in the pipeline and figure out how to get new business. You're going to hear no a lot, and they're going to tell you we're not interested in brokers. That to me, if I didn't understand the why, if I can't put myself in a shipper's shoes and know fully why they're saying that, I wouldn't know how to combat that objection. Because I can tell you, I talked to enough shippers and I've consulted on the sales side well enough with enough large shippers the last couple of years that I know exactly what happened through COVID. You onboarded 200 brokers if you had to get the capacity that you needed. And is that sustainable to give 200 brokers now all a piece of the pie? Most of them probably underperformed the entire time you had them, but you didn't have the ability to cut them out, right? So everyone's actively trimming down their supplier base right now. I can tell you, because we stuck to what we know works and we pushed only for that, we have onboarded with several people in the last 2 months that said, we are cutting out incumbent brokers right now. And we still came in because we knew what we were doing, and we can prove that easily because we stand behind it and we don't change the model. So the other thing right now is going to be like, just because it's tempting, because maybe there's an opportunity for faster revenues somewhere else if you pivot, if you do something different, if you change your model up, your value up a little bit, if that causes you at all to sacrifice that value that you're selling to your incumbents and to your new shipper partners, don't do it. Like, don't go there, because guess what? Who knows, 6 months away from the market swinging in a different direction, 12 months away from the market being at the peak of a new cycle. Like, don't make a decision now that's going to, we got Lewis. He's excited. It's coming, man. That's the good thing.
Yeah, that's my slow clap for you, Samantha. You're nailing a lot of things, a lot of topics. You're just absolutely nailing.
I love that you touched on that, because that was like in my head, and that's what I've been telling my people that works is, yes, they've onboarded, but they also onboarded a lot of carriers, and then these carriers especially, because they were there, a lot of these went into with this like asset, we wanted assets, right? And then they had onboard brokers. We're doing the same. I know a lot of carriers that failed on lanes and went and found other opportunities that worth more money, and let the shippers down. So when they say what you said, the last 3 that I brought on have said that they were getting rid of. Now, when they said they were getting rid of brokers, by the time we were done with the conversation, I finally got out of them that, my first question was, and you're probably getting rid of the bad ones, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right off the bat, right? You're trying to prune. Yeah, I would too. I mean, I'd prune out the ones that weren't performing or whatever. And there's probably some carriers you're going to prune too, right? Well, yeah, we were looking at that too. We love to have assets, and it's like, it's overall service at the end of the day. So, when you look at it from that standpoint of like, yes, we preach this to try to help people not go that way, but people are doing that, and that's where the opportunity lies. So.
Yeah, and just understanding that the shippers that you're talking to, again, like I've spent enough time, and I'm very grateful talking with shippers. I have great friends who have taught me a lot from the shipper side. That's one of the reasons I reached out to Tony and we got connected, because I love talking to the shippers and getting their perspective on things. And like, if you ask any shipper who fires back an email that says we don't want any more brokers, we prefer to work with assets, why? Because I can tell you the why is 95% of brokers cannot even come close to replicating the service that an asset provider can give them. It's because those brokers can't do drop trailers. They can't manage trailer pools. They can't
answer an email.
That's a good one. No, maybe if they're running in a transactional spot market, like things are going to happen. It's going to happen. You're counting on inconsistent capacity as your source for a committed relationship. So there's a lot of other things that go with that. Like I can touch on this a little bit from an org structure standpoint. Like maybe this is a new thing that people haven't addressed. We knew this starting out, and we've proven it out. When you run in a transactional freight model as a broker, you are going to be people heavy, because it takes 20 times as long, if not 100 times as long. I don't know. Like it's a big difference to cover a load in a spot market than let that sucker flow in EDI and flow out EDI to your committed carrier that you're set rates, auto tender. That's how our model runs 90% of the time. Our people are exception management. We only get involved when something pops up out of the ordinary. So our head count is going to run extremely lean in comparison to a brokerage that's doing $500 million of freight and they have 450 employees. Like, do the head count.
100 in Columbia.
Yeah, or it's outsourced, right? But either way, you still have, like, you lose that control too a little bit, right? When you're outsourcing that, or it's still a manual process. I mean, one of the, we have a 10-point carrier accountability plan. And if our carriers don't meet all 10 points, then if there's a viable workaround for one of them, we can be flexible, but a lot of them are not optional. They just won't run committed freight for us. So we keep very strictly to that. One of them is you have to have either an ELD, a GPS unit that we can do an integration with, or open API connectivity. So we don't even do manual check calls for tracking. It all has to be automated. So like everything we're doing is in and out. Updates are coming in automatically. Again, exception management. So what does that do to our profit margins as a broker? We can take reasonable, transparent margins and make money because we're not throwing people at the problem. When you don't have to like just hire a bunch of people to go cover a bunch more freight in a transactional market, you can keep your internal costs low, which help your overall profitability as a brokerage.
Yeah, 8% margin looks a lot better. You know,
I mean,
too many people and you have to be at 20.
If we take 8 to 10% margin on certain accounts, but everything is just like clockwork in and out, and we have a great relationship there, then like that is literally just money in the bank.
Yeah, and that's the key too. And it's that you know, the brokers that especially in your niche, especially, they can't meet the service that an asset-based carrier can bring, right? However, at any shipper, I mean, there's carriers that don't service it well at all either. You know,
well, let's talk about like
it's this push down that's just always been in. There's a lot of people in supply chain that have been in forever. I mean, there's old guys, and it's just this stigma, this thing that it is. You know, assets bring better service. You know, that's not always the case. It's not always the case. However, the age difference and the experience difference between brokers and carriers is pretty large. So the amount of brokers that can't provide the service, there are obviously way more. But the opportunity.
Well, I think that's like if there's only 90 something % of active brokerage authorities are never going to surpass $1 million in revenue. Mm-hmm. Like, think about how many brokers are out there that are just always going to be like, I mean, I don't really know. I can't fathom not being able to surpass $1 million in revenue.
Well, agents. I mean,
it's these agents models, but still those are the same brokers. Like, understand that, TJ, those are the same people that are calling the same people you are. And they hear it 50 times a day from someone who wants to basically double broker their freight because they're an agent for a large carrier who happens to have some trucks or whatever it is. Like, and then I literally, I've never done the day-to-day work. Like, I never did the carrier sales side, right? So now that I'm at a company where I'm in a position that I can sit in and understand that, I did the other day. We run, like I said, less than 10% of our freight goes onto a load board. And even before something goes to a load board, we'll still roll it through our internal carrier base that's already set up before we'll get there. So the other day, we had one load out on the load board, and I was like, all right, I want to like see how this goes. So I like shadowed on it, and it was like, how do you do this as a broker all day, every day? Because we have 4 Landstar agents in there instantly, 3 double brokers in there instantly. Like, and I mean, we're using the systems and software to vet them. So that's how you know that, right? But then it's like, if you just sat there and waited on a beautiful, nice carrier to call you, who knows exactly what they're doing, like, you might be waiting all day before you might get that one call.
And your operation isn't set up for that either. So some that are, and I know I came from an expedite heavy background in which we were pushing out, even when we were pushing out, 300-400 million a year, we were always spot. Yeah. I mean, there was a time when I was an account manager, I was doing $200,000 a month in profit, all spot bids. But those, again, you adapt to what you have, the types of
and some models have to do it. I'm not saying that it's like
no. I know. I'm just making the point of like I'm actually proving your point. Like, once you're good in your niche, right, and you know what you're doing, not only does it help you in sales because you say, listen, this is what I can do, and you're confident in that, and that's who you go after, right? Yeah. So then those people are going after those, and so they're not going to go after, if you're good at spot bids, you're going to limit your struggles and stuff. You may not go after a drop trailer carrier.
So let me say this, like, to that point, when we run into a shipper and they're like, no, we need live load freight. We don't really actually look for drops. Okay. Like, I mean, we can do live loads, but then if they're saying like we run on 24-hour lead times, that's probably just not a good ICP for us.
Right.
But for some broker that was like, oh, music to my ears, I can cover in spot because that's how you're set up to cover. Yep. For us, we look at that and we go, that's labor intensive. Right. That's manpower that we don't have staffed because that's not our model 90% of the time. If it's not our model 90% of the time, trying to fit it into that 10% is just putting stress on the rest of the organization. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, don't deviate away from what you have going for you if that is your thing. So that is somebody's bread and butter right there. That 10% that you don't really want is somebody's 95. So let them have at it.
And that's smart. That's it. And again, that's smart to do that. And that's something that, when you have those conversations with shippers, like you said, when you talk with shippers, like you said, I talk with Tony, I talk to a lot of people. When I talk with them now, like on a discovery call or a prospecting call, it's like I can talk to them just like I talk with, because Tony's like a friend. Right. And I know his lingo and what he deals with and what his pains are. I listen to Jeff, and what he's talked about and what he's went through and things like that. And it's like, now and some of my other friends, I can get on there and it's like, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this guy gets it. It kind of clicks. Right. I mean, it's like, Tony, he speaks my language. He knows, even if it's not something that's like super relative, it's still like, continues the conversation.
Tony can attest to this. I mean, I think shippers know. Like, they hear so much from these brokers and carriers that if Tony got on a call and they were going to try to be like, all right, I'm going to BS my way through this and tell him I run everything on drop trailers. And this is like a few exploratory questions. And if someone doesn't really know what they're talking about, like, it's pretty obvious. So
it takes about 3 seconds.
There you go.
Oh,
so
man. Go for it.
We had someone, I was on a call the other day vetting the opportunity up front because it was a very large shipper and they were like, yeah. Well, we talk about truckload and we talk about that. And then they were like, but we've got this other thing that's really like, I'm trying to figure out this unique solution. And like, we start talking about it. And so I shot him straight. I said, do we do that currently? No. Is that something that like, I would even pretend we do well. No, because we don't. It is a very unique thing you're looking for. And I just offered it up to him. I said, you know what? We're a pretty young company. Like, we like kind of looking at these things and going, is there someone else who's willing to do it? Because if there's not, then we might be willing to explore creating that with you. And so I let him know, like, hey, we're the type of people, I mean, we look at it as a challenge, right? Gabe, that's kind of how he built this company, is like addressing things that aren't being addressed already. And then we go and we run with it. So I just told him straight. I was like, hey, we'd be willing to work with you to collaborate, to create a solution, but it would take collaboration. It would take you driving, like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm trying to do. And then we'll try to build it out with you if that's something you're interested in. But if you were hoping that you're going to find someone who's like, yep, I can already do that, I know all of this, it's not us. And we're okay with saying that, because that's
for the theme of uncovering opportunities. It's where my network that I built over the last couple of years has been used to my advantage, where it's like, hey, I don't do that, but I got a guy that does.
Sure.
Right. And
had I known
me
someone
doing
who
that
did,
right there is what then they say, you know, it's just like different. Like, you don't ever hear that, right? So then now that opens up all the other stuff that I do, that I can do well with, right? Because it just kind of builds that little bit of a, you know, ethic, right? There's some morals involved in that. And I think let's pivot here. I'm a big pivoter, like Steve Kerr out here. So because of where we're going with this, let's flow to Jeff first before we go to Lewis and Tony, because I think Lewis and Tony are going to be a little more on the you know, the uncovering the opportunities and what she just talked about, right? Having your niche, being strong to it, right, and standing by it, and how that not only helps growth, but it's a proactive versus reactive, you know, type of model in which it feeds right into what I've always said, you know, prepare for the good times during the bad ones and prepare for the bad times during the good ones. Because then you don't really, I mean, you're already prepared for either one of them, right? And what have you, because you have been this long enough that clearly you've done something that's made, you know, help you maintain that and then be successful even on the brokerage side.
Yeah, you talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking to me? One of my favorite subjects. My honesty and integrity is first and foremost. I think everybody knows that. I hate brokers. That's why I am one, because there's so many unethical brokers out there that give the really good ones a bad name. Let's face it. They don't do background checks. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know who they're reaching out to. They don't know about the company background. So like Tony says, 1, maybe 2 seconds, as soon as they open their mouth, you know, it's see ya, you know. Mm-hmm. So being sitting in the seat, managing over $100 million worth of freight on the shipper side, and getting 35 calls a day, because when you have that big piece of pie, everybody wants a piece of it, but they just don't understand the concepts of working from the inside out rather than the outside in. And when I say that, I never sell freight. That's the last thing that I want to do, because the most important thing that I want to know, being a shipper, is their operations, what they do, why they do it, when they do it, you know, all that kind of stuff, because that to me is going to give me the upper hand of understanding where their problems are. Like I always say, and the way I go about doing my business, I try to uncover the hidden bank. That's where the revenue is, where a lot of people don't go. I am not a chaser. I don't call shippers. I'm a chasee. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at my numbers right now. From the beginning of the year, I'm up 387.01% revenue. And I'm up in shipments of 265%. I made no calls this year. Okay.
That's because of me, right?
Absolutely. And thank you for the leads. I appreciate that. No, I think there's a different way of doing it. And the way that I do it is that if you're knocking out of the park with a shipper, current client, where's the best reference, right? The recommendation is from that. Now I take another perspective of looking at a spider. Spider has many legs, upstream, downstream. If you're knocking it out, you know that they have vendors, they have suppliers, raw materials and everything. So why not work it upstream or downstream, however you want to look at it, because that's going to open up the door. And I don't spend my time making cold calls and wasting my time, because I know when I was working for a 3PL for 7 years and I was on the client development side, that when you make those calls and you add that into the CRM, I mean, on average, about 7 minutes a call, right? And when you look at everything and putting everything into the system, so you figure 1,000 calls, right? A month, 3,000 calls, a quarter, you're up to 21,000 minutes, right, of call time. So within that time, how many customers are you going to get in that return on that SG&A, all that overhead cost that you're doing, right? So the thing is where's the bucket? What are you going after? You know, how are you finding out what their revenue is and what their transportation spend is? So when you think about all that time and you're going after the 500K to $1 million, $1.5 million, and you spend all that time to get 3.6 clients in, how much time did you waste, and how many months are those new clients going to be? I would rather spend my time going after the big hitters, because that's where the money is, and take my chances there. Because if you land one, all those calls that you made on the smaller ones, it's irrelevant.
But the upstream is how I know you were in automotive, because we came from the automotive industry, and the suppliers, that's where it's at, right? Because Ford paying attention for every freaking penny and dealing with them and all that compliance. Oh my God! But you find who's providing the foam, the plastics, the rubber, right? They're paying them whatever to ship it because they need it. You know, I got like I said the other day, I got $4,500 for a box of bolts to go from Detroit to Lansing one time. It was gonna shut a plant down, right? Put it in a Sprinter van. Now I paid the carrier extremely well. I actually did made a decent margin, not as much as what you think on 86 miles, but it was also at midnight. However, like that's just that, you know, those suppliers are there and they're going to do that. And
wasn't that me?
Lewis, did you hear what Jeff just said there? He said,
yeah,
working from the inside out, right? And he said, understanding their operations, being down there, knowing what they're dealing with on the dock. What advantage does that give you?
Well, I mean, obviously, being the carrier and being the owner and the operator, it's a bit of a cheat code because, you know, I'm the carrier. I go in there. So if, you know, I'm trying to build that relationship with that first person I see, because he may see me a second time or they may see me a second time. So knowing how they run that and how that works, that's everything. It really is. And being two things, right? So being proactive instead of reactive is also the other side of this. And it sounds like Samantha over there at Rocket Shipping, they're definitely a proactive and not a reactive business model. And it's why you guys are successful as you are.
That's it. That's it. I mean, you know what? I mean, in the time of war, and why Eisenhower made the interstate was just simply that. He looked at the what if scenarios if we were attacked, and what and how we would do it to protect our nation. So the same thing is in logistics. You have to outthink the thinkers and think proactively at all the what ifs. So if you get on the round table and you're sitting there at that oak table, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Are you prepared to act accordingly to outbeat the other thinkers out there, right? A reactive solution is the worst kind of solution that you can have in this industry. You have to be proactive, and you have to, it's like building the field of dreams. Build it before they ask you to. So this way, when you go back to your corporate and you have those meetings with the hierarchies, you don't have to discuss, can we do it? You know automatically that you can, and you can tell them right then and there, face to face, yeah, we've already built that. Yeah, we have that solution. Rather than saying to them, hey, you know what? That's an awesome idea. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. If you say that, you've lost the deal. So always try to think operationally on the inside out. What are they facing? You know, what kind of problems do they have? Can we meet and exceed their expectations? Once you get to that point, win, win, win across the board. Make sure you collaborate with everybody that you meet. Very important.
Yeah, you know what doesn't happen if you don't plant the seed? Nothing grows. So like Jim Rome, I love his stuff. He always teaches this. He always taught the law of numbers. And it's just your job to plant the seed. Plant as many seeds as you can, right? And by not planting those seeds, you're already you're way behind, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna go ahead and like, I would build on that and say, you know, that looks different at every level. So like, you know, for an owner operator, that looks different than for me. You know, we talk with companies like Walmart about onboarding. And I know that if I'm going to, approach, I have some people there that we know, but I know that like, hey, we're probably talking about like 6 to 12 month minimum onboard times with companies like this. So planting those seeds early, because I know that like that's going to pay off in probably not another year. Or, we in the brokerage space, we take our shipper pay terms. So you have a long onboard. We see anywhere from 30, 60, 90, 120 day pay terms. Yep. So you have 120 days before revenue hits your books for something that you ran 119 days ago.
Budweiser.
So like thinking ahead and planning for that. And then, taking it into account too. Does it work with your model? Know that too. Can I actually realistically service and make money on someone with 120 day pay terms?
Hey, don't chase down Budweiser when you know it's 120 day pay terms, when now any carrier basically fine, you're paying them out front and not seeing any return for another 100 days. So that's a great point there.
Like there's ways to do that in partnerships that you can create. And Jeff talked a little bit about calling and stuff, and we are big on cold calling. We are big on being outbound, but if you call someone and you don't know why you just called them, I'm going to have a problem with that.
I hate 100 calls a day. I'm so against 100 calls a day. That's so inefficient. Inefficient.
So, okay, let me tell you something, because you guys will have to check this out, because I was thinking about it. This isn't a me thing. This is totally a Gabe thing. Gabe is so fast paced, so high energy. You can, like, we're kind of testing with dialers that you can literally, it will call through and it will immediately, like, it will only push it to our seller if someone answers the phone. Otherwise, it just leaves the voicemail for you and moves on to the next, but it can call 6 people at a time, because realistically, maybe 1 in 6, if any, answers the phone when you call. Yeah. So you can call 50 people.
Are you prepared when it comes in? I mean, like that's why I don't.
Yeah. So you have to make sure it works with your systems, right? So like we have to vet it through. We are pre-building our lists. So these aren't lists that are just like scraping yellow books. Right. It's like, hey, these are all the people that we've already vetted as ICPs. What's an ICP? We know why they're an ICP. It's our ideal customer profile. We went through, we verified, we looked at with the company, you research the company, you know why you want to talk to this person, who you want to talk to, and you put them into this list. And so then it's a matter of how often are you going to get the person on the phone? Like, are you ever, do they respond to email? I don't know. Is that their preferred method? Like, you have to try multiple things usually when you're trying to get in touch with someone. So you're doing that. We're in LTL, we're actually in SaaS as well. We have a proprietary TMS that's a SaaS solution. So we sell some different things. On the full truckload side, it's a lot different. Since we work with our carriers, we have a core carrier base. We keep an internal file accessible by our sellers that is all the current network needs our carriers have that we need to fill.
Yep.
So when we're prospecting, I am looking, like the other day, we had 3 loads a day, drop trailers, drive in, coming from St. Louis to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. They were deadheading, the carrier was deadheading, or running like some one-off spot load to get to Greensboro, North Carolina. From Greensboro, they were taking a load, 3 a day, drop trailer back to St. Louis. So there's this gap that's missing. That goes immediately into we need to fill this. And so we will call shippers in Pittsburgh who ship outbound dry van freight in Pittsburgh and ask them, do you ship Greensboro? I have 3 a day. How quickly would we be able to talk about a potential solution? Mm-hmm. And if that's not what they have, it's on to the next. So like,
I got just a quick.
And Jeff, I know Jeff. Let me touch real quick, Jeff, because I know you're shaking your boots over there. This here is the difference between like the agent model. I mean, I talked to like a Jason Rabin, some of these guys, John Rogers, and that the mode that Rocket Shipping's in, and that scaling. I've been there. We went from that to that scale, and you got to do some of these things. I know it's hard to understand because it's like, man, that whole dialing thing, is tough to get. But when you're in that scale mode, right, and you're trying to scale out,
I get it.
It's sustainable, responsible scaling.
Yes, right. Yes. There you go.
Just one thing, because I know the answer of this, and I'm not going to answer this. It's going to come from the horse's mouth, no pun intended. Tony, how much time during the day as a logistics manager do you have available to spend time on the phone?
Who said?
Well, that's because he was talking to me.
That's the whole thing. That's the trick. right. That's the trick right there. You know, by doing your homework, by understanding the background of the person, where he or she worked, the company that they work for, you can tell the demand that's happening on them, and you have a very, very small window of opportunity, and you better choose your words wisely, because if you don't get that across and get their attention and create that spark, that phone's going to hang up quicker than you dialed it. I mean, it's just going to be gone.
Everyone's the best one I'll talk to today.
But so Tony, right now, you know, let's look at what you're, you know, when you look at, you know, not only do you feel it obviously then from, you know, the sales side of things, you know, and I know you're hurting for drayage, so you're getting a ton of calls for that. You just need to make up your mind and pick a broker so we can just get over with it. But I mean, like, you're seeing it from that end, but also, you know, coming out of this, right? So coming from, I want to hear what your take is as a shipper, you know, coming out of getting your ass kicked for 2 years, you know, not only from your own sales team, right? Putting over it, right? And this is how it works. Promising, right? And then, you know, your people saying, hey, why are we paying so much? You know, revenue, budgets are being busted. You know, where are you adjusting? What are you seeing, you know, that you guys are doing kind of on the other end?
Well, I'll tell you what, and thank you, Samantha, for hooking me up with Gary, because, like, I think I want to hang out with that guy. Like, he's so cool.
Who is it?
Gary Cornelius.
His last name's Cornelius?
Yeah, he's, you know, I don't know.
Is he related to Yukon?
Maybe.
No, Don Cornelius.
Silver and gold. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
So
Soul Train.
He was telling me this story that he had where, you know, this ties into what you were saying, Samantha. He had a customer where they were 3 calls in, and on the beginning of the 3rd call, he was like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I hate to have wasted your time. I just don't think this is the right fit for us, for you. And he said, what do you think happened? I was like, that guy hung up the phone and called you, or when you got off the phone, he called you back and asked you to be his carrier, didn't he? He goes, yeah, we got the deal. I said, because you were honest. And he told you. I said, my gosh, that's what you do. So it's the same idea. That's part of why I like the guy, because, I mean, just you could just, he stinks of integrity in a great way, you know. I mean, you could just tell he's a cool dude, and I want to hang out with him. So you get your butt handed to you for 2.5, 3 years. Yes, anything. I don't care that this guy's got a Penske truck that still says Penske rental, and they're still, like, they're taking the lettering off while he's backing in the dock and putting his magnet on the door, to getting any kind of capacity at all, to now that's on the other foot. And this is what nobody remembers. It's going to swing right back in a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Samantha, you were saying this, so true. Anybody that's been around in the game long enough, like more than the last 3 years, knows Lewis, Jeff, Samantha, TJ, it comes this way and then it goes that way, and then it goes this way and then it goes that way. It never hangs out here. So it's going to be carrier and broker heavy, and then it's going to be shipper heavy, and then it's going to be carrier heavy, and then it's going to be shipper. So we go back and forth, but what you have to do is understand that. I have a list of KPIs and metrics that I have to meet. At the end of the day, everybody says you can't have value when you can get good, fast, and cheap, but pick 2. And I'm like, no, those are all subjective. You got to pick them all. Pick all 3 of those, because I'm going to get that from our partners, because my butt is on the line with our customers, with my company that I represent, with my sales team that is providing this opportunity for us to be employed, with the team that I'm responsible for leading. They all rely on us to be making those right choices, whether it's good times or bad times. And we're going to spend as little as possible to get the best job we can in the right amount of time frame.
Yeah.
No matter the market.
Yep.
But and
I would just like to say
that's the service. So, like, we always talk about, like, brokers and, you know, balancing, you know, how they service customers, you know, the give and take, right? And you guys do the same thing, right? As a customer, right? As a shipper, Tony, you're saying, hey, I'm going to expect this, you know, from you here, but I'll take care of you on these, right? I've got this over here in which you've got a little bit more time, right? And you're looking at
you got to cut
the exact standpoint of, like, how do I keep somebody that can give me all 3, right? Because it's hard to do that. When you find that now as a shipper, it's so funny. That strategy now for you is, how do I keep that type of carrier? How do I keep them? Because going out and finding somebody that can give you all three is tough, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Samantha.
No, I mean, so two thoughts I can revisit real quick on. We've talked about, emailing. You have people email you, you have people call you, you have people message you on LinkedIn. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone has the right to say one thing works, one thing doesn't. It's really just, all that matters is the talent in the person on the other end of that message. And like, a good salesperson doesn't feel like a salesperson, but a good salesperson also knows how to clearly, concisely, and quickly communicate their value and the reason they are trying to speak to you. And I know, I can say without bragging, like I know that I can do that. And I still occasionally will get the people who are like, are you trying to sell me something? And then they just hang up the phone. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. It doesn't faze me. It doesn't bother me. Whatever the situation is, you just move on. I get it. Definitely think that there's multiple ways to approach sales, multiple ways to approach relationships, and everybody's going to have a different style and flair, and it's going to work differently for some people. And every shipper is going to receive different as well. Like they want to be called, they want to be emailed, they want to be linked. None of them probably say they want any of that, right? But at the end of the day, that's how they find the people they use. Maybe it's in-person events. I'm a big fan of it.
And maybe they take your email and save it. How many emails have you gotten where they're like, I saved this and now I need you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, we just got an RFP the other day, and I was like, where did this come from? Does anybody know where this came from? And you're like, everybody's like, what is this? And we go back, and like somebody had sent an email, detailing our capabilities like 4 months ago, and they put us on an RFP list and never even responded. And so it's like, what? Now, again, we're going to have to understand. And that's why we kind of, we step in and we coach sometimes on the front end, because if they're sending out an RFP to anyone who's ever solicited them, then this might not be our ICP, right? Like, so now we need to understand, can this shipper actually provide value to us? So there's some things that you have to do there, but yeah, definitely. You never know.
And how many salespeople though, how many sales guys, because it is tough now, will take that, submit it, and run with it as an opportunity, now because they're not getting as many opportunities, and they use that, even though that's not a good fit, they try to push it through just to get something in their name. Yeah,
you know what else? They're probably going to price every single lane too.
Yeah, every lane. Lewis, we don't have a ton of time left, Lewis, but I want Lewis. I talked to you a little bit about it the other day. Obviously your social media has helped. The fact that you're friends with, Tony Darnell, and. But I mean, your embracing of the owner part of the owner operator, right, has helped. And you're looking at, I see people out there, and I'm sorry, and I don't care if the guy's listening or not, but there's people out there that are saying they got 30 years of experience and they're bitching about things that dudes should probably have figured out after 3 months of experience, right?
Yeah,
he knows exactly who he is, and if he wants to call me, he can call me. But quit bitching, right? Because there's ways to do it. And right here, you got a guy sitting in a truck who's doing it, right? Because he's making relationships, and he knows. And we talked the other night, Lewis, what are you doing strategy wise right now? Instead of bitching, what are you doing to find opportunities, especially rate wise?
I mean, it's hard to not quote unquote bitch, but like, I know the value that doesn't add to anything. Yeah, we all do. But I'm planning for a longer game. I'm planning for growth. I'm planning for scalability. I'm not planning for the next load only. I'm trying to build something. So, using the connections I have and just using the platforms we have, I'm going to use all my resources I can. I have a marketing background, I have management background, and now I'm an owner. So, definitely using all the resources I have is advantageous, right? It's making sure we acknowledge our younger generation, we teach them, we train them, because we can't sit here and say, oh, I hate brokers all day, when half the time most of these brokers are just inexperienced and untrained, and they're thrown into a commission-based world, and they're told, you want to make money, this is how you have to do it. But shame on that. Let's just teach better. And at least from my point of view, now being the owner, I want to add value to people. If you're not adding value to people you meet, then what's your goal?
And so what the difference between you? So there's you could go and you could post a screenshot of a rate that a broker has posted, right? And you could complain about it, right? And you can have all the other drivers or carrier managers or whoever they are that have no brain cells left support you on it, right? Or you could post a picture of you sitting there filling out your logbook for the night, right? With a strategically placed mug in the background of one of the brokers that does give you freight, right? And talk about the grind you did and how you manage those e-logs and how you hit the brake or how you set the parking brake with 1 minute left on your clock because you managed it perfectly, right? And now all of a sudden, who's getting more opportunities? You?
Yeah, that's the thing. I can't keep up with the opportunities, and as grateful as I am, also it was strategic. It was planned. Like you said, where I placed the mug, how I word what I phrase when I posted, how I posted. There's a full intent with it. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but there is intent, and there's a goal, and that is.
You're the marketing team. You're the sales team. You're the driver. You're everything.
Lewis, I appreciate you more than you know, but 10-2, buddy. You're rolling.
Oh, don't try riding with Tony. Yeah, what were we in? We were in Acadia.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, dude! I thought we were. I'm pretty sure we probably should have been pulled over.
I'm a professional.
Okay.
He made it happen, but I was on the old shit handle.
I'm gonna debate.
I was on the old shit handle half the time. I mean, he made it happen. I mean, I'll give him that. But Jesus,
yeah.
TJ, I would say, like, just to kind of like, we talked through that pretty full circle. So from my standpoint, just to kind of close that out, that this is a cyclical market. Anyone who's been in it longer than 3 years has probably seen one full market cycle, if not a little more, on average 3 years for a full market cycle to run through. Okay. So that means that the good times are fairly short, really, in reality, and the bad times are fairly short in reality. Bad times, good times. Doesn't have to feel like that dramatic of a swing when you run a consistent business model year round and you find the right partnerships. Like Tony said, if you have the right partners who don't kick you out to replace you with another low-cost broker as soon as the market flips in a more favorable position, walk away. Don't go back to that. Like, don't ever go back to that until maybe they can prove there's new leadership, they're making new decisions, right? I've worked with shippers, large shippers. You can take millions of dollars of freight and they will replace you when the market swings and someone comes in to undercut you. But then, I was put in the position where when the market was high and it wasn't time for them to make cuts yet, I could have given them a rate concession. I could have done it, but it's like, you have to think through that as the broker, as the carrier. It's like, when I take this to you and say, I will cut my rate by 20% to be in line with the market, and you do that for them. We did this once and they take it and they're grateful. Then when the market flipped back and I wanted to come back and be slightly higher priced to retain my incumbency status, and the favor is not returned, that's not somebody that I need to continue to work with. Like, if I'm going to treat you with integrity when I'm able to, by making sure I'm taking reasonable margin. I mean, you guys, last year, I hope shippers know this, when the market flipped so dramatically, not last year, the beginning of 2022, right? It was so high and it came down so low. There were literally people running with like $800 of profit margin on lanes when that flipped so quickly.
Yep.
And those were year-long contracts that were only 3 months into being locked in.
Yep.
So how many of those brokers and carriers went back to their shippers and said, hey, we're going to be, this market's only working itself down for the rest of this year. Let's revisit. We'll give you a reasonable concession because we want to be able to make sure that we have this lane again next year.
Yep.
Nobody does that.
No.
Yeah.
Damn it. It's just a great point, because I've heard so many people on the bitch about that too. And it's like, you didn't get, you had it all last year. Well, you didn't get, we had we based most of our business off this account. Right. And then all of a sudden you didn't get anything this year. It's like,
yeah. And if you didn't offer a concession, think how bad you looked when the new rates came in 30% below what your rates were. Up until, that's the thing. These were contracted rates. So they run live until the new start. You guys think about this. They're going to see these rates at a 20%, 15%, 30% reduction. Then they know full well that you could have done that at any point yourself, because you are not that far out of market reality, as opposed to those other, you might be a premium provider and we'll give you that, maybe 5% spread at times, but you are not telling me that you can't buy within 30% of the average market. So, I mean, that put a lot of people in uncomfortable positions this last year going into the ones that are probably still open or going finalized. A lot of things are about to get shuffled up. That's where a lot of brokers got exited specifically because they never came back. They ran 9 months of contracted freight on rates that were not in touch with reality. And that's a terrible position to be in when the negotiations come around and you cut your own rates by 30% to try to retain, knowing it's competitive. And they just look at you and go, you mean you couldn't have done that a month ago in the same market, but you can do it now?
Because there's smart young people like you pointing it out.
But that's the disconnect between being a middleman because that's why it's so important as a broker, as a middleman, because a lot of them took that extra margin, and what they did, was they were so focused on that carrier sourcing, right? Getting to where we'll pay our carriers more, right? We'll pay our carriers more than with that extra margin, right? Well, then all of a sudden when it does drop or you lose the freight or whatever it is, now you can't even pay your carriers hardly anything, right? And so, I do understand the carrier side. I've been on it. And so I do understand some of that complaint of that, of a broker, because now you're thinking like, what happened? They don't understand. They don't know what happened, in that transaction. It could be there's so many different things that happen, but it could be that. It could be all these different types of things. But if you're not, like you said, if you're not doing it ethically for a long-term relationship with your shipper, and then communicating what you're doing with your shipper to your carriers, right? So they're involved just as much. They understand that transaction. Like you just said, you said at the beginning of the show, right? It's very transparent and they understand it. They feel involved in your growth, and they'll do a lot more for you. And the shipper feels involved in your growth because you're transparent with them on what your carriers are doing. And now it's a whole transparent thing. But if somebody's holding margin on either side, you're in trouble.
We're a capacity in hand model. So our carriers are running these committed relationships. And if the market changes mid-cycle, if we're like, we should probably, for the sake of having this long term, we want to talk and revisit rates. We can't do that without talking to our carriers, because the carriers are the one who provided us the rates. We're working on our rates. We have our carriers. And I know that. Like if you're running since so much of our stuff is running drop trailer pools, right? We have equipment stage. We have a lot of it, investment that goes into making sure that this is going correctly. We're going to give our carriers absolutely, first and foremost, the chance to say, do you want to revisit this rate? It'll probably help us make sure that we, retain incumbency during the next bid cycle. And then, if something happens and the rates go back up, we'll be right there saying, hey, what do you need again to make sure you're making money? What do you need to be profitable? We'll take it back to the shipper. So that's why I say sustainable, profitable, but just building relationships that are sustainable on both sides. I am a broker. The only reason a shipper would use me is to put stuff on a truck. The only way I have trucks is if I have carriers who want to work with me. So our carriers are our customers first, and then we take that capacity to a shipper.
Because the mindset you have is just like what a carrier would. And that's why it has benefited me so much being on both sides. And if there's more brokers that think this way, just like you guys do, is, if you're going to have to change rates, a carrier would have to go and talk to their drivers about it. Correct. Mm-hmm. Right. Just like a broker would have to go talk to their carriers about it. It's the same thing. They're your drivers, right? You may deal with a dispatcher or an ops manager, but it's still the same. It's the same exact thing. If a carrier says it, that they probably got to talk to their drivers, they recruited for this, whatever it is, the broker probably should do the same thing. And that's what is the difference. And I think let's wrap this because we're over time here. But, I think, after, you look at this conversation, there's all different types of freight that's moving, all different type of commodities. There's seasonal stuff coming on, right? I mean, anything, boat recreation, Tony, right? All the way out to just even the RV recreational stuff, agriculture, all that stuff, drainage, right? You got golf courses, you got solar panels, you got all this stuff that's going to ramp up. So when a market is, everyone wants to say down, it's not all one thing, right? I always said that even about capacity. Capacity doesn't just drop. Sometimes it shifts, right? The port needs help. Now it's all down on the port, figure it out down there or whatever. So it could be commodity, whatever it is. So look at it, follow along on things. Download some stuff. So there's articles coming through every day. So you can kind of stay up to date on some of that stuff. Feed off of people like Jeff, Samantha, Tony, Lewis, people that are on LinkedIn. Listen to those things. You don't have to be involved in and comment, or it can be a little exhausting sometimes, but keep plugged in, because what it's going to do is it's going to, Jeff's going to say one thing that you didn't think about, and it's going to click, right? Samantha's going to bring something up. She's going to post it. She doesn't think even affects anybody. She thinks it's just, good content or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, it hits you. So there's things that can happen and things that can come up, but you have to be willing to listen and follow. Find a Tony Darnell.
Everything is subjective. Everything is subjective. All it is, it's an alternative. It's an option. Mm-hmm. It's a suggestion. That's all it is. We're just provoking thought. Like you said, somebody may come up with a solution you never thought of. It's like, hey, that's a great idea. Let me try it. So, oh, good.
And if you're an
economists are sometimes wrong. Economists are just making predictions on what their interpretation is of the data in front of them, and there's usually varying opinions. Like if we can be so varied on an opinion with something as big and important as the macroeconomics, and are we in a recession, are we not, and when will we and will we not, like just understand, like everybody's just doing their best to look at the information around them, interpret what it means for them, make educated choices, move forward, stick to your choices, pivot, TJ, when necessary, if you made the wrong decision, Yeah. But
and you're right. People can be wrong, and they might be. And it's hard.
Everybody's wrong.
Man, I feel like I've done a better job in the last there's a lot of people on LinkedIn sharing like brokers and stuff, sharing information that they're just beating their chest out there, like talking about all this stuff. And it's like, it's so hard to hold my tongue sometimes, because I'm like, dude, you can't come out and say like, I have this numbers, and this is how I did it. And this is, I don't agree that any other way of doing it, because I did it this way. And it's like, you know what? Let them be them though. Let it go. Let them have a good conversation. It sparks good conversations in the comments. Maybe people learn from that. So it's hard. I have to tell myself that sometimes, but be out there, share stuff, learn from it, but take it with a grain of salt, twist it, add it to what you're doing in your operation. Do not stray from your niche, right, Samantha? And stick to your guns, right? Follow through with it, and by the time you're done, you'll be sitting in a chair with a handlebar mustache like Jeff, with who knows how much money the guy's got. Right. It doesn't even matter about money. It's just the jawline right now. But you've got guys out there that have been experienced, that are successful, that have started over in the last couple of years, like a Claudio, who the dude's not going to stop. He's going to get it done, right? And you feed off people like that, right? So find yourself a Tony Darnell. Samantha, better not be stealing from me. But that's great. The fact you did that means I know that's how I know you're good at what you do. So find yourself somebody that you can pick their brain and have those conversations, because it just makes it that much better. And now all of a sudden, opportunities aren't being uncovered; they're in front of you.
Yeah,
there's a lot of pain in this industry. You just got to know how to push it off to the side, because logistics is not a job. It's a daily adventure, because you get blindsided every single day. You know what you have today, you know what you lost yesterday, and you have absolutely no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. None. You don't.
Yep. That's why when people ask what you do, you're like, oh God.
Hold my beer. We're talking freight.
My beer. And hey, that kills pain. All right, gang. Hey, thanks for tuning in. God bless you. If you can help Tony with Dredge, somebody please just help this guy out.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
Samantha's
got it covered.
Are you available in the next 5 minutes? Or,
no, yeah.
If you need
no, Jeff could do it for you.
Yeah. Samantha's got all my
okay, we gotta go.
Uses English.
See you, gang. Thanks,
guys.
I'm gonna go full screen here.